The vast expanse of the Milky Way galaxy was home to countless civilizations, each with its own unique culture, technology, and power. At the top of this cosmic hierarchy was the Galactic Council, a powerful assembly of the most advanced and influential alien species. For centuries, the Council had ruled the galaxy with an iron fist, ensuring that all planets and their inhabitants followed their strict laws. They were feared and respected by all, and few dared to challenge their authority. Earth, a relatively young and technologically developing planet, had caught the Council's attention. Humanity had made significant strides in science and technology, progressing at an astonishing rate. This rapid development worried the Galactic Council. They saw humanity as a potential threat to their dominance, and they decided it was time to bring Earth under their control. On a quiet evening in a top-secret underground bunker beneath the White House, Earth's top leaders gathered for an emergency meeting. The president, flanked by military generals, scientists, and diplomats, stared at the large holographic screen that dominated the room. The screen displayed a message from the Galactic Council written in a universal language understood by all species in the galaxy. The message was simple but ominous. Earth was to submit to the Galactic Council's rule or face the consequences. President Laura Mitchell, a woman known for her calm demeanor and sharp intellect, read the message aloud to the room. Her voice was steady, but there was no mistaking the tension in the air. The demand was clear. Earth had to surrender its sovereignty, its independence, and become a vassal state under the control of the Galactic Council. As she finished reading, the room fell silent. The leaders exchanged worried glances, each of them grappling with the gravity of the situation. They knew that the Council was not to be trifled with. The Council's fleet was vast, its technology far superior to anything Earth had ever seen. No planet had ever resisted their demands and survived. General Robert Hayes, the head of Earth's defense forces, was the first to speak. His voice was deep and commanding, a reflection of his years of military service. "Madam President," he began, "we all know what's at stake here. If we submit to the Council, we lose everything, our freedom, our way of life. But if we refuse, well, we've all heard the stories. Planets that defied the Council have been wiped out, their people enslaved or worse." Dr. Emily Chen, a leading scientist in the field of quantum physics, nodded in agreement. "The Council's technology is far beyond ours. Their weapons could destroy entire cities in seconds. But we've made significant advancements, too. We're not completely defenseless." President Mitchell leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. She understood the Council's ultimatum. Surrender would mean losing everything that humanity had fought for, their independence, their future. But resisting the Council seemed like a death sentence. "What are our options?" she asked, looking around the room. "Can we negotiate with them? Is there any way to buy time?" Secretary of State James Donovan, a seasoned diplomat with years of experience in intergalactic relations, spoke up. "The Council isn't known for its patience or leniency. Negotiations might buy us a little time, but in the end, they'll expect us to comply. They see us as a threat, and they won't stop until we're under their control or destroyed." The room grew tense as the gravity of the situation sank in. Surrendering to the Council was unthinkable, but resisting seemed equally impossible. The leaders knew they were facing an enemy far more powerful than anything they had ever encountered. President Mitchell took a deep breath, her mind racing as she weighed their options. She knew that whatever decision they made would have far-reaching consequences, not just for Earth, but for the entire human race. After what felt like an eternity, she spoke. "We can't just roll over and surrender," she said, her voice firm. "Humanity has always fought for its freedom, and I'm not about to give that up without a fight. But we need to be smart about this. We need to buy time, prepare our defenses, and explore every possible avenue for survival." General Hayes nodded, his respect for the president growing. "We'll need to mobilize our forces, strengthen our defenses, and work on any technological advancements that could give us an edge. It's a long shot, but we have to try," Dr. Chen added. "We've been working on a few experimental technologies that could help. They're untested, but desperate times call for desperate measures." Secretary Donovan sighed, rubbing his temples. "We'll also need to keep the Council at bay with diplomacy for as long as possible. I'll do what I can to stall them." The room buzzed with activity as the leaders began planning their next moves. There was no easy solution, no clear path forward. But one thing was certain. Humanity would not go down without a fight. As the meeting came to a close, President Mitchell looked around at her team, a sense of resolve settling over her. The Galactic Council may have issued their demands, but Earth was not ready to submit. They would fight, and they would do whatever it took to protect their home. The countdown to humanity's greatest battle had begun. The sun had barely risen over the horizon when Earth's skies suddenly darkened. People across the planet looked up in shock as massive, ominous shadows blocked out the sunlight. The Galactic Council had arrived, and they weren't here to negotiate. The first sign of the attack was the eerie silence that fell over the planet. Birds stopped singing, animals became restless, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then, without warning, the sky erupted in a dazzling display of lights. Alien warships, sleek and menacing, descended through the atmosphere, their engines humming with a power far beyond anything Earth had ever encountered. In the Pentagon's war room, General Robert Hayes stood before a large holographic map of Earth, his expression grim. He watched as red dots, indicating enemy ships, multiplied across the map, spreading like a virus. The Council's fleet was enormous, far larger than anyone had anticipated. They had brought their full force to bear on Earth. "Get me a status report," General Hayes barked, his voice echoing through the room. Technicians and officers scrambled to provide updates, their fingers flying over keyboards as they accessed real-time data from Earth's defense systems. "Sir, the Council's fleet has entered our atmosphere," one officer reported. "They're positioning themselves over major cities, New York, London, Beijing, Moscow. It looks like they're preparing to strike." General Hayes clenched his jaw. He had been expecting this, but the sheer scale of the attack was overwhelming. The Council wasn't just trying to subdue Earth, they were trying to crush it. "Activate the planetary defense grid," Hayes ordered. "I want all missile batteries online and scramble the fighter jets. We need to hit them with everything we've got." On the ground, chaos reigned. In cities around the world, sirens wailed as people scrambled for cover. Emergency broadcasts blared from every screen, urging civilians to take shelter immediately. The streets were filled with panicked crowds, all trying to escape the inevitable destruction. In New York City, the once bustling streets were now deserted as people fled to underground shelters. High above, the alien warships hovered like dark clouds, their weapons glowing with a sinister energy. Suddenly, one of the ships unleashed a blinding beam of light aimed directly at the Empire State Building. The iconic skyscraper stood no chance. The beam sliced through it like a knife through butter, and within seconds, the building crumbled to the ground in a massive cloud of dust and debris. Similar scenes played out in cities across the globe. No landmark was spared. The Eiffel Tower in Paris, the Great Wall of China, the Sydney Opera House, all were reduced to rubble in moments. The Council was making a statement. Earth's symbols of pride and achievement meant nothing to them. Back in the war room, General Hayes watched the devastation unfold on the screens before him. His heart sank as he realized the enormity of the task before them. But he refused to give in to despair. This was Earth's darkest hour, and he was determined to lead them through it. "Missile batteries 1 through 4, fire at will," Hayes commanded. The order was relayed instantly, and within seconds, Earth's defense systems roared to life. From hidden silos deep beneath the ground, massive missiles shot into the sky, leaving fiery trails in their wake. The missiles arced through the atmosphere, heading straight for the alien warships. For a moment, there was hope. The missiles hit their targets, exploding in brilliant bursts of light. But that hope was short-lived. As the smoke cleared, it became painfully clear that the Council's ships had barely been scratched. Their shields were far more advanced than anything Earth had ever faced. The missiles had done little more than annoy them. "Sir, our missiles had minimal impact," an officer reported, his voice tinged with fear. "Their shields are too strong." General Hayes slammed his fist on the table in frustration. "Damn it! Keep firing! We have to find a weakness." As Earth's forces. In the skies, Earth's fighter jets engaged the alien ships in a frantic dogfight. The pilots were some of the best in the world, but they were hopelessly outmatched. The alien ships were faster, more maneuverable, and equipped with weapons that could vaporize a jet in an instant. One by one, the jets were picked off, their pilots barely having time to eject before their planes were destroyed. On the ground, the situation was just as dire. Soldiers and civilians alike fought to protect their homes, but it was a losing battle. The Council's ground forces, tall, armored aliens with advanced weaponry, began to land in major cities, overwhelming any resistance they encountered. It was a massacre. In Washington, D.C., President Laura Mitchell watched the carnage unfold from the Oval Office. Her face was pale, but her resolve was unshaken. She knew the odds were against them, but she also knew that Earth would not fall without a fight. "Get me General Hayes," she ordered. Within moments, the general's face appeared on her screen, his expression one of grim determination. "General," the president began, "we're taking heavy losses. What are our options?" Hayes took a deep breath. "Madam President, our conventional weapons are ineffective. We need to consider using our experimental technologies, things we haven't tested in real combat. It's risky, but it's all we've got." President Mitchell nodded. "Do whatever it takes, General. Earth is counting on you." With that, the connection ended, and Hayes turned to his team. "You heard the president," he said, his voice steely. "Prepare the experimental weapons. It's time to show the Council what Earth is really capable of." As his team set to work, General Hayes allowed himself a small glimmer of hope. The first attack had been devastating, but it wasn't the end. Earth still had a few tricks up its sleeve, and the battle was far from over. The fight for humanity's survival had only just begun. Part 3. Earth's Counterattack. 900 Words. The world was reeling from the devastation of the Galactic Council's first attack. Cities lay in ruins and smoke filled the skies, casting a dark shadow over the planet. But even in the face of overwhelming destruction, Earth refused to bow down. It was time to fight back. In the Pentagon's war room, General Robert Hayes stood at the center of the chaos, surrounded by screens showing real-time footage of the ongoing battle. His face was set in grim determination. The initial attack had taken them by surprise, but Earth's counterattack was about to begin. "Are the experimental weapons ready?" General Hayes asked, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. Dr. Emily Chen, the scientist leading the experimental weapons project, stepped forward. Her usually calm demeanor was now laced with urgency. "Yes, General. We've managed to activate the quantum disruption cannons and the EMP satellites. They're untested in combat, but this is our best shot." General Hayes nodded. "Good. We don't have time for a test run. We'll hit them with everything we've got." He turned to the officers in charge of the missile defense systems. "Target the lead warships with the quantum disruption cannons, and activate the EMP satellites. Let's see if we can knock out their shields and electronics." The war room buzzed with activity as orders were relayed and systems were activated. Across the globe, hidden weapons began to power up, their advanced technology humming with untapped energy. These weren't just conventional weapons. These were Earth's secret projects, designed for a day when humanity would face a threat unlike any other. In low Earth orbit, a series of satellites came to life, their solar panels reflecting the light of the distant sun. These were the EMP satellites, designed to release powerful electromagnetic pulses that could disable electronic systems across a wide area. As they locked onto their targets, the command was given, "Fire the EMP pulse," General Hayes ordered. The satellites responded instantly, unleashing waves of electromagnetic energy toward the alien warships. The pulse spread out like ripples in a pond, sweeping over the enemy fleet. For a moment, it seemed like nothing had happened. Then, one by one, the warships' lights flickered and dimmed. Their shields sputtered, and some of the ships even lost control, drifting aimlessly in the sky. In the war room, a cheer went up as the effects of the EMP pulse became clear. The alien warships, once invincible, were now vulnerable. "We did it!" one of the officers shouted. "Their shields are down!" General Hayes allowed himself a brief smile. "Now hit them with the quantum disruption cannons." On the ground, massive cannons, hidden in secret bases across the globe, adjusted their aim. These weren't ordinary cannons. They were powered by quantum technology, capable of disrupting the very fabric of space-time around their targets. The cannons fired, sending out concentrated beams of energy that tore through the atmosphere and struck the alien warships. The effect was immediate and devastating. The beams sliced through the warships like a hot knife through butter. Hulls were breached, and explosions rippled across the sky as ship after ship was torn apart by the quantum disruption. The once unstoppable fleet was now in disarray, with several of the ships plummeting to the ground in flames. In New York City, where the first attack had begun, people watched in awe as the tide of battle turned. The once menacing alien warships were now falling from the sky, crashing into the ocean or the wreckage of the city below. It was a sight that filled the survivors with a renewed sense of hope. Earth was fighting back, and it was working, but the battle was far from over. The remaining alien warships regrouped quickly, adjusting their tactics in response to Earth's unexpected counterattack. They began to fire back with renewed ferocity, targeting the locations where the quantum disruption cannons and EMP satellites were based. Explosions rocked the hidden bases as the Council's retaliation began. Back in the war room, the atmosphere grew tense once more. General Hayes knew that while they had dealt a significant blow to the enemy, they couldn't afford to let their guard down. The Council was still a formidable force, and they would not take this defeat lightly. "Prepare for a second wave," General Hayes ordered. "We need to keep the pressure on. Focus all remaining firepower on the largest ships. They're the command vessels. If we can take them out, we might cripple their entire operation." The officers scrambled to follow his orders, relaying commands to the remaining missile batteries and fighter jets. Earth's forces were exhausted, but they knew this was their chance to turn the tide of the battle. On the front lines, fighter jets, now equipped with modified weapons, swarmed the alien warships, firing missiles and laser beams at their vulnerable points. The alien ships responded with their own firepower, and the sky was soon filled with explosions and streaks of light as the battle intensified. In one particularly intense dogfight, a squadron of Earth's best pilots, led by Captain Sarah Adams, managed to outmaneuver an alien fighter wing. With precision and skill, they took down several enemy ships, clearing a path for the ground forces to advance. On the ground, Earth's soldiers, armed with advanced weaponry, engaged the alien ground forces that had landed in the cities. The battles were fierce and chaotic, but the human soldiers fought with a determination that surprised even the aliens. They were fighting not just for their lives, but for their homes, their families, and their planet. In the war room, General Hayes watched as the battle raged on. The counterattack had given Earth a fighting chance, but it was clear that the outcome was still uncertain. The Council's forces were vast, and even with their shields down, they were still a formidable enemy. But Hayes knew one thing for sure: Earth would not go down without a fight. They had struck back, and now the battle for survival was truly underway. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity's resolve, and that mistake might just cost them the war. As the battle continued, General Hayes made a silent vow. No matter what happened, Earth would never surrender. They would fight to the very end, and they would make the Council regret ever underestimating the strength and determination of the human race. The counterattack was just the beginning. The real battle had only just begun. Part 4. New Alliances Form. 900 words. The battle between Earth and the Galactic Council had reached a critical point. Both sides had suffered heavy losses, but Earth's unexpected counterattack had shifted the balance, even if only slightly. However, the Galactic Council's forces were vast, and Earth's resources were stretched thin. It was clear to General Robert Hayes and his team that they couldn't win this war alone. They needed allies, powerful ones. In the depths of the Pentagon's war room, the atmosphere was tense. The screen showed real-time footage of ongoing battles, but General Hayes wasn't focused on the warships or the soldiers fighting for their lives. His attention was on the large holographic map of the galaxy, highlighting potential allies in the fight against the Council. "Are you sure this will work?" General Hayes asked, his voice low as he spoke to Dr. Emily Chen. Dr. Chen, who had been instrumental in developing Earth's advanced weaponry, nodded. It's a gamble, but we have no other choice. We've identified several alien species that have been oppressed by the Galactic Council for centuries. They may be willing to join us if we can convince them that we're serious about defeating the Council. General Hayes frowned, looking at the highlighted sectors on the map. These were territories far beyond Earth's reach, home to alien civilizations that had long suffered under the Council's rule. Reaching out to them was risky, but it was their best shot at turning the tide. "All right," Hayes said, making his decision. "Send out the diplomatic envoys. We'll offer them protection, technology, and a seat at the table in a new galactic order. If they join us, we might just have a chance." The message was sent out across the galaxy, using secure channels that Earth had managed to keep hidden from the Council. It was a simple message, but it carried the weight of desperation and hope. "Join us in our fight against the Galactic Council. Together we can break free from their tyranny." Days passed and the war raged on. Earth's forces were holding their ground, but barely. Every hour, General Hayes and his team waited anxiously for a response from the alien species they had contacted. It was a tense time, with no guarantee that anyone would answer their call for help. Then, just when hope was beginning to fade, a response came. The first message was from the Zaltor Confederacy, a powerful race of warriors known for their honor and strength. They had been subjugated by the Council generations ago and had long harbored a desire for revenge. The message was brief but promising. "We have received your call. The Zaltor Confederacy stands ready to fight alongside Earth. We will arrive within the week." General Hayes felt a surge of relief. The Zaltor were a formidable force, and their support could be the turning point in the war. But the good news didn't stop there. Over the next few days, more responses trickled in from other alien species. The Arvians, a race of brilliant engineers and scientists, offered their technological expertise. The Zarak, a nomadic species with a fleet of highly maneuverable starships, pledged their support in space battles. Even the peaceful Eldorians, known for their healing abilities, agreed to provide medical aid to Earth's wounded soldiers. As each new alliance was formed, Earth's chances of survival grew stronger. The once solitary planet now had allies from across the galaxy, all united by a common goal: to overthrow the Galactic Council. In the Pentagon's war room, the mood had shifted from despair to cautious optimism. The map of the galaxy now showed not just Earth's forces, but those of their new allies as well. It was a sight that filled the room with hope. "General," Dr. Chen said, her voice filled with excitement, "the Zaltor fleet has just entered our solar system. They're ready to engage the Council's forces." General Hayes nodded, his expression determined. "Let's show them that Earth is not alone in this fight." The Zaltor ships were a sight to behold. Sleek, heavily armed vessels that seemed to glide through space with deadly grace. As they joined Earth's forces in orbit, the balance of power began to shift. The Council's warships, once confident in their superiority, now found themselves facing a much larger and more diverse enemy. But the Zaltor weren't the only ones to arrive. The Zarak fleet appeared soon after, their nimble ships darting around the larger Council vessels, striking with precision before disappearing into the void. The Arvians provided advanced shielding technology that protected Earth's cities from further bombardment, while the Eldorians set up mobile medical stations to treat the wounded. On the ground, the arrival of these new allies was met with awe and gratitude. Humanity had never seen such a diverse group of species working together, and it was clear that the war had taken on a new dimension. It was no longer just Earth against the Galactic Council. It was a full-scale rebellion against tyranny, with Earth leading the charge. In the midst of the chaos, General Hayes received a secure communication from the Zaltor leader, High Commander Korvash. The alien's voice was deep and resonant, filled with the weight of many battles fought. "General Hayes," Korvash said, "we have waited a long time for this moment. The Council's reign of terror ends today." Hayes nodded. "Together, we will bring them down. Thank you for standing with us." The High Commander's response was simple but powerful. Honor demands it. With their new allies by their side, Earth launched a coordinated assault on the remaining Council forces. The combined might of the human and alien fleets was overwhelming, and the Council's ships began to fall one by one. The tide of the war was turning, and for the first time, victory seemed within reach. As the battle raged on, the Galactic Council realized they had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated the resilience of Earth and the willingness of others to join the fight. Now, faced with an unstoppable alliance, the Council's grip on the galaxy was slipping. The alliances that had formed out of necessity were growing stronger with each passing day. Earth was no longer alone. The fight for freedom was just beginning, and together, they would make sure the Council's tyranny was brought to an end once and for all. The moment had finally arrived. After weeks of intense preparation and forming unexpected alliances, Earth and its new allies were ready to face the Galactic Council in a decisive battle. The stakes had never been higher. Victory would mean freedom for billions across the galaxy, while defeat would plunge Earth into darkness and tyranny. In the vast emptiness of space, the combined fleet of Earth, the Zaltor Confederacy, the Zarak, and other allied forces gathered near the Council's stronghold, a massive space station known as the Citadel. The Citadel was heavily fortified, surrounded by layers of defense platforms, automated turrets, and an armada of the Council's most powerful warships. General Robert Hayes stood on the command deck of Earth's flagship, the Resolute. His eyes were fixed on the holographic display showing the battlefield. The sheer scale of the confrontation was breathtaking. Thousands of ships filled the screen, each one a vital piece in the chess game that was about to unfold. "Is everyone in position?" General Hayes asked, his voice steady despite the tension in the room. "Yes, sir," responded Captain Elena Vasquez, the ship's tactical officer. "The Zaltor fleet is ready to engage the enemy head-on. The Zarak ships are in position for flanking maneuvers, and the Arvian engineers have deployed their energy disruptors to weaken the Citadel's shields." General Hayes nodded, taking in the information. This was it, the moment they had all been working toward. He knew that this battle would determine the fate of Earth and the galaxy, but he also knew they had prepared as best as they could. "All ships, this is General Hayes," he announced over the fleet-wide communication channel. "We stand at the edge of history. The Galactic Council has ruled with an iron fist for too long. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for every species that has suffered under their tyranny. Stay strong, stay united, and remember, victory is within our grasp. Engage!" With that command, the battle began. The Zaltor fleet, led by High Commander Korvash, charged forward, their heavily armored warships absorbing the brunt of the Council's opening salvo. The Council's ships unleashed a barrage of plasma bolts, but the Zaltor's advanced shielding technology held firm. In return, the Zaltor fired their own weapons, powerful energy beams that sliced through the Council's defenses like a hot knife through butter. As the two main fleets clashed, the Zarak ships executed their flanking maneuver. Their small, agile vessels darted around the edges of the battle, targeting the Council's support ships and supply lines. The Zarak were known for their hit-and-run tactics, and they used them to devastating effect, disrupting the Council's formation and sowing chaos among their ranks. Meanwhile, Earth's fleet, with the Resolute at its center, focused on breaking through the defenses around the Citadel. The Arvians had managed to weaken the Citadel's shields with their energy disruptors, but the station's defenses were still formidable. Automated turrets fired relentlessly at the approaching ships, and waves of Council fighters swarmed the attackers. On board the Resolute, General Hayes coordinated the assault, his mind racing as he processed the constant flow of information. "Focus fire on the turrets," he ordered. "We need to clear a path for our bombers to get through." Earth's bombers, equipped with powerful torpedoes, moved in as the fleet pounded the Citadel's defenses. One by one, the turrets were taken out, and the path to the station's core was opened. The bombers flew in, releasing their payloads and causing massive explosions that rocked the Citadel. But the Council wasn't going down without a fight. Reinforcements arrived from the far side of the battlefield, massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons. These were the Council's most powerful ships, and they immediately began targeting the Allied fleets. The battle raged on, with both sides suffering heavy losses. Ships exploded in bright flashes of light, debris scattering across the void. The Zaltor continued to press forward, their warships taking on the Council's dreadnoughts in a brutal close-quarters fight. The Zarek ships weaved in and out of the chaos, their hit-and-run tactics keeping the Council off balance. Despite the odds, the Allied forces were holding their own. The Council had underestimated the strength of the alliance that Earth had forged. But the battle was far from over. On board the Citadel, the Council's high command watched the unfolding battle with growing concern. They had never faced such a determined and unified opposition. The realization that they might actually lose this battle was beginning to dawn on them. "We cannot let them reach the core," one of the counselors said, his voice trembling with fear. "If they destroy the Citadel, our rule is finished." But before they could take further action, a massive explosion shook the Citadel. One of Earth's bombers had breached the station's inner defenses and struck a critical power conduit. The lights flickered, and the station's defenses momentarily faltered. Seizing the opportunity, General Hayes gave the order for a full-scale assault. "All ships, focus your fire on the Citadel's core. We have to take it down now." The Allied fleets converged on the Citadel, pouring everything they had into one final push. The Zaltor's heavy guns, the Zarek's nimble fighters, Earth's relentless bombers. It was a coordinated effort that brought the full might of the Alliance to bear on the heart of the Council's power. As the Citadel's shields failed and its hull began to crack, panic spread among the Council's forces. They had never seen anything like this, a united front of species fighting for their freedom. Their once unchallenged dominance was crumbling before their eyes. Finally, with a deafening roar, the Citadel's core detonated. The explosion was massive, sending shockwaves through space and tearing apart the remaining Council ships. The Galactic Council's stronghold, the symbol of their tyranny, was no more. Cheers erupted across the Allied fleets. The battle was over. The Galactic Council had been dealt a crushing blow, and the path to freedom was now open. But General Hayes knew this was only the beginning. The Council's forces were scattered but not entirely defeated. There would be more battles to fight, more challenges to face. But for now, they had won a major victory. And as the Allied fleets regrouped and prepared for the next phase of their campaign, one thing was clear. The galaxy would never be the same again. The destruction of the Citadel sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council's iron grip on power had been shattered. But the war was far from over. The Council's remaining forces, though weakened, regrouped and prepared for one last desperate attempt to reclaim control. On Earth, General Robert Hayes knew that the final battle was approaching. The victory at the Citadel had been monumental, but the Council still possessed a powerful fleet, and they were determined to crush the rebellion once and for all. This was their last stand, and they would throw everything they had into it. "Commander, any updates on the Council's movements?" General Hayes asked, his voice calm but with an edge of urgency. Commander Elena Vasquez, who had been monitoring the situation closely, responded quickly. "Sir, our scouts have confirmed that the Council is regrouping near the Orion Nebula. They're amassing their remaining ships for a full-scale assault. They know this is their last chance." General Hayes nodded, his expression grim. "They're desperate. That makes them dangerous, but we can't let them gain the upper hand. We need to strike before they're fully prepared." As Earth and its allies mobilized their forces, the tension was palpable. Every soldier, pilot, and officer knew that this battle would determine the future of the galaxy. The Allied fleets, now a symbol of hope and resistance, rendezvoused near the Orion Nebula, preparing to face the Council's last-ditch effort to reclaim power. The battlefield was unlike any they had encountered before. The Orion Nebula was a swirling mass of colorful gases and cosmic debris, a beautiful but deadly backdrop for what would be the most important battle of their lives. General Hayes stood on the command deck of the Resolute, his eyes fixed on the holographic display. The Allied fleet was positioned strategically, with Earth ships at the center, flanked by the Zaltor warships and Zarak fighters. The Arvian engineers had deployed their energy disruptors once again, ready to weaken the Council's defenses. "Attention, all ships," General Hayes began, his voice broadcast across the fleet. "This is it, the final showdown. The Council is throwing everything they have at us, but we've fought too hard and come too far to back down now. We fight for Earth, for our allies, and for every free species in this galaxy. Let's finish this. The Council's fleet emerged from the swirling gases of the nebula, a formidable force despite their losses. Massive dreadnoughts led the charge, flanked by swift and agile fighters. They had one goal: to crush the rebellion and restore their dominance. The battle began with a thunderous clash of weapons fire. The Zaltor fleet, known for their resilience, took the brunt of the Council's initial assault. Their shields absorbed the incoming fire, while their heavy guns returned it with deadly precision. The Zarek ships darted around the battlefield, their hit-and-run tactics creating chaos within the Council's ranks. Earth's fleet, with the Resolute at its core, focused on taking down the Council's flagship, the Sovereign. The Sovereign was a colossal dreadnought, bristling with weapons and protected by advanced shielding technology. It was the symbol of the Council's power, and its destruction would be a crushing blow to their morale. "Target the Sovereign's shield generators," General Hayes ordered, his mind racing as he coordinated the attack. "We need to bring those shields down." The Allied ships concentrated their fire on the Sovereign, but the dreadnought's shields held firm. The Council's defenses were formidable, and their counterattacks were relentless. Earth's ships were taking heavy damage, and the battle seemed to hang in the balance. But General Hayes had anticipated this. "Commander Vasquez, initiate the contingency plan," he ordered. Commander Vasquez nodded, a determined look on her face. "Yes, sir." From the far side of the battlefield, a new fleet appeared. Reinforcements from the Arvian homeworld. The Arvians had been secretly building a fleet of their own, and now, at the most critical moment, they joined the fight. Their ships were equipped with advanced energy weapons capable of penetrating even the most powerful shields. The Arvian fleet opened fire on the Sovereign, their energy beams slicing through the dreadnought's shields like they were made of paper. The Council's flagship was now vulnerable, and the Allied forces didn't hesitate. Earth's bombers, flanked by Zarek fighters, moved in for the kill. "The Sovereign's shields are down," Commander Vasquez reported, her voice filled with excitement. "Now's our chance." "Finish it," General Hayes ordered, his voice cold and determined. The bombers unleashed their payloads, targeting the Sovereign's main reactor. Explosions rippled across the dreadnought's hull as the reactor was hit. The Council's flagship was crippled, and its fate was sealed. But the battle wasn't over yet. With the Sovereign disabled, the Council's remaining ships launched a desperate counterattack. They fought with the ferocity of a cornered animal, knowing that this was their last stand. General Hayes knew they had to act quickly. "All ships, concentrate your fire on the Council's remaining forces. We need to end this now!" The Allied fleets redoubled their efforts, pressing the attack. The Council's ships, already weakened and demoralized, began to fall one by one. The tide of the battle had turned, and the Allied forces were now in full control. As the last of the Council's ships were destroyed, a silence fell over the battlefield. The final showdown was over. The Galactic Council's power had been broken, and the galaxy was finally free from their tyranny. On board the Resolute, General Hayes allowed himself a moment of relief. They had won. The cost had been high, but they had won. The galaxy would no longer live in fear of the Council's wrath. Earth and its allies had secured a future of freedom and peace. As the Allied fleets began to regroup and tend to their wounded, General Hayes knew there was still work to be done. The Council's remnants would need to be dealt with, and the galaxy would need to be rebuilt. But for now, they could celebrate a hard-earned victory. The final showdown had ended in triumph, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The aftermath of the final showdown was one of both relief and profound change. The Galactic Council's defeat had set the stage for a new era in the galaxy, one filled with both hope and uncertainty. As the dust settled from the intense battle, the Allied forces began the process of rebuilding and re-establishing order. On Earth, the mood was one of cautious optimism. The victory had been hard-won, and the costs had been significant. General Robert Hayes, now a hero to many, stood before a gathering of representatives from Earth and its allies. They were meeting to discuss the future and how to ensure that the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. The meeting was held in the Grand Assembly Hall of Earth's rebuilt command center. The room was filled with leaders and delegates from various species, each one eager to contribute to the shaping of the new galaxy. The walls were adorned with banners of the Allied forces, a symbol of their unity and shared purpose. General Hayes addressed the assembly with a mixture of pride and determination. Ladies and gentlemen, representatives from across the galaxy, we have achieved a great victory. The tyranny of the Galactic Council has been ended, but our work is far from over. We stand at the dawn of a new era, a chance to build a galaxy based on cooperation, freedom, and mutual respect. The representatives nodded in agreement, their faces reflecting a mix of hope and determination. Among them were High Commander Korvash of the Zaltor, who had been instrumental in the battle, and Chief Raxor of the Zarak, known for his strategic prowess. Their presence was a testament to the strength of the new alliances that had been forged. As discussions began, the focus turned to the immediate challenges facing the galaxy. One of the key issues was how to integrate the various species and ensure that all voices were heard in the new governance structure. The Galactic Council had ruled with an iron fist, but the new era required a different approach, one of inclusivity and collaboration. "We need to establish a new governing body," said Commander Vasquez, who had taken on a key role in the reconstruction efforts. "One that represents all species and ensures that decisions are made collectively. This will help prevent any single group from gaining too much power." There was general agreement on this point. The representatives began to draft a framework for a new Galactic Council, one that would be elected by all member species and have equal representation. The aim was to create a system that was fair and transparent, allowing for open dialogue and cooperation. As the new governance structure took shape, efforts were also underway to address the immediate humanitarian needs. Many planets had suffered extensive damage during the conflict, and aid was needed to rebuild infrastructure and provide support to those affected. The Arvian engineers, known for their advanced technology, offered to assist in rebuilding efforts. Their expertise in constructing and repairing was invaluable, and they worked alongside Earth's engineers and local technicians to restore damaged systems and facilities. Meanwhile, the Zarak, with their reputation for resourcefulness, took on the task of organizing relief efforts and distributing supplies. Their experience in managing complex logistical operations made them well suited for this role, and they ensured that aid reached those in need quickly and efficiently. Despite the challenges, there was a palpable sense of hope and determination among the people of the galaxy. The defeat of the Galactic Council had opened the door to new possibilities, and there was a collective desire to build a better future.